Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. The December snow fell softly outside the two-story house on Maple Street, covering the small suburban neighborhood in a blanket of white that should have felt peaceful. Jason Davis stood at the kitchen window, watching his daughter Emma play in the backyard with Charlie, their golden retriever. The dog bounded through the fresh powder, Emma's laughter cutting through the quiet evening air like music. Jason smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. 3 years since Sarah died, and those moments of pure joy from Emma were still rare enough to feel like gifts. Charlie had been the turning point. A rescue dog Jason brought home 18 months ago when Emma's grief counselor suggested a pet might help. The transformation had been remarkable. Emma, who'd barely spoken for months after losing her mother, had slowly come back to life. "They'll be here in an hour." Jason turned from the window as the words hung in the air like a threat. He checked his watch. Christmas Eve dinner with the in-laws. Harold and Marcia Bowman, along with their golden child nephew Derek, were coming for their annual obligation meal. Jason had learned to endure these visits with the same grim determination he'd once used to chase down corrupt politicians during his journalist days. Emma came bounding in through the back door, Charlie shaking snow all over the mudroom. "Dad, can Charlie stay in the living room tonight? Please? He'll be good during dinner." Jason hesitated. "Em, you know how your grandparents feel about. They don't like anything," Emma said, her smile fading. At 11, she was already too perceptive. "They didn't like Mom marrying you. They don't like that we kept this house. They don't like Charlie. They especially don't like when I'm happy." The accuracy of that statement hit Jason like a punch. He knelt down to Emma's level. "Hey, we keep Charlie in the kitchen during dinner because it's easier, not because they're right about anything." "Got it." She nodded, but he could see the doubt. 3 years of her grandparents' subtle poison was taking its toll. Harold's constant comments about Jason being unsuitable for their daughter. Marcia's theatrical sighs about how Sarah would have wanted Emma raised properly. And Derek, 32 years old, unemployed, living off his Uncle Harold's money, always there to sneer at Jason's little documentary projects and remind everyone that he was the favorite. The doorbell rang at precisely 6 o'clock. Harold Bowman believed punctuality was a virtue, right after wealth and bloodline. Jason opened the door to find his father-in-law in his usual wool coat and judgmental expression. Marcia stood beside him, her lips pursed as if she'd already found something to criticize. Derek lurched behind them, scrolling on his phone. "Jason," Harold said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. "Still haven't fixed that crack in the walkway. Liability issue." "Merry Christmas to you too, Harold." Jason took their coats. Marcia's eyes swept the living room with practiced disapproval. "No tree yet?" Sarah always had the tree up by December 1st. "We decorated it last week," Jason said evenly. Emma picked out every ornament. "Where is Emma?" Marcia's voice softened, the only time it ever did. Her granddaughter was the sole Bowman she seemed capable of loving, though even that love came with conditions and comparisons to her late mother. Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, and Jason watched his daughter's face perform a familiar transformation. Genuine smile replaced by something more guarded. "Hi, Grandma." "Hi, Grandpa." Harold's greeting was warmer than anything he'd given Jason. "There's my smart girl. Getting straight A's, I hope." Bowmans don't settle for less. "Mostly A's," Emma said quietly. "I got a B+ in math. We'll work on that." Harold's tone made it clear this was a failing. Dinner was the usual exercise in endurance. Jason served the prime rib he'd spent hours preparing, knowing Harold would find something wrong with it. Marcia asked pointed questions about Emma's upbringing, while Derek helped himself to thirds and made comments about real jobs versus Jason's documentary work. "I heard you won another award," Kelly Merrill, their neighbor and Emma's occasional babysitter, had mentioned last week. "The one about the foster care system?" Jason, that was incredible journalism. But journalism didn't impress Harold Bowman, who'd made his fortune in real estate and measured worth in dollars. "Still chasing stories for pennies," Derek said through a mouthful of food. "Must be hard, living in Sarah's house, knowing you couldn't afford it without her life insurance." Jason's grip tightened on his fork. Emma was watching him. Wait and see if he'd take the bait. He set the fork down carefully. Must be hard, he said quietly, being 32 and still taking allowance from your uncle. Derek's face flushed red. Marcia gasped. Harold's eyes turned cold. Derek is between opportunities, Marcia said icily. He's not some working-class drudge. He's selective. He's unemployed, Jason said. There's a difference. The dinner deteriorated from there. Emma excused herself early, taking Charlie upstairs. Jason endured another hour of barely veiled insults before the Bowmans finally left. But not before Harold pulled him aside at the door. We're concerned about Emma, Harold said, his voice low. Marcia and I have discussed getting her into a proper boarding school. The kind Sarah attended. She needs structure, discipline, the right influences. She needs her father, Jason said. And her home. Does she? Or does she need parents who can provide the life a Bowman deserves? Harold's implication was clear. Derek mentioned he'll be staying at our place through New Year's. He'll be joining us for Christmas morning. 9 o'clock sharp. Don't be late. Jason watched them drive away, fighting the urge to tell Harold exactly where he could put his boarding school suggestion. Instead, he went upstairs to find Emma sitting on her bed, Charlie's head in her lap. I heard Grandpa, she said softly, about the boarding school. Jason sat beside her. That's not happening, Em. I promise. But what if they won't? I won't let them. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. You, me, and Charlie. That's our family. No one changes that. She leaned against him, and they sat in silence, watching the snow continue to fall outside her window. Jason thought about Harold's words, the constant pressure to give Emma up to their proper Bowman upbringing. The suggestion came up every few months, always after Marcia had whispered something about Jason being inadequate. What Jason had never told the Bowmans was that Sarah's death hadn't been the accident they all believed. He'd spent months investigating after the funeral, using every skill from his journalism career. The brake line failure that killed Sarah had been deliberate. He'd proven it. But the police ruled it accidental, and without concrete evidence pointing to a suspect, the case was closed. Jason had his suspicions about who might have wanted Sarah dead. She'd been preparing to challenge Harold for control of the family business, armed with evidence of his tax fraud. She told Jason everything the week before she died. After the funeral, those documents vanished from their safe deposit box. Only 3 people knew about them: Jason, Sarah, and Harold, who had the spare key as trustee. But he couldn't prove it. Not yet. Emma fell asleep against his shoulder. Jason carried her to bed, tucking Charlie in beside her. The dog's soft breathing seemed to calm her even in sleep. He stood in the doorway, watching them, and made a silent promise to his late wife. Their daughter would have the childhood Sarah wanted for her, full of love and laughter, with the dog who'd brought her back from grief. Nothing would take that away from Emma. Not Harold's money. Not Marcia's judgment. Not Derek's entitlement. Nothing. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and bright sunshine. Jason woke early to start coffee and prepare Emma's favorite cinnamon roll breakfast. He heard her padding down the hallway, Charlie's nails clicking on the hardwood floor beside her. Merry Christmas, sweetheart, Jason called out. I'm making. He stopped. Emma stood frozen in the hallway, a piece of paper in her trembling hand. Her face was pale, eyes already brimming with tears. Em, what's wrong? She couldn't speak, just held out the paper. Jason took it, his blood running cold as he read the words written in Marcia's distinctive cursive handwriting. We gave your dog away. Your cousin Derek didn't want it around during his visit. This is for the best. The animal was making you too attached to this house and your father's mediocre lifestyle. Don't make a scene when you come over. Bowmans don't make scenes. See you at 9 a.m. Grandmother. Jason read it twice, unable to process what he was seeing. When did you find this? It was on my door when I woke up. Emma's voice cracked. Dad, where's Charlie? They searched the house. Every room, every closet, the garage, the backyard. No golden retriever. No scratching at doors. No happy barking. The silence was deafening. Emma's bedroom window. Jason noticed it was unlocked, slightly open. He'd locked it himself last night before bed. They came back, Jason said slowly, the realization hitting him like ice water. After dinner, while we were sleeping, they came back and took him. Emma collapsed on her bed, sobbing. The sound tore through Jason's chest, bringing back memories of those first months after Sarah's death when Emma cried herself to sleep every night. They'd finally gotten past that. Finally found joy again. And the Bowmans had ripped it away like it meant nothing. Jason sat with his daughter while she cried, his own rage building into something cold and focused. This wasn't just about a dog. This was about control. About Harold and Marcia asserting their dominance, reminding Jason that they could reach into his home, take what his daughter loved, and expect him to show up at 9 o'clock and smile about it. The note said, "Don't make a scene." They expected him to be reasonable, to understand their twisted logic. They expected him to teach Emma that Bowmans didn't make scenes, that you swallowed your pain and moved on. Jason made a decision. "Emma," he said quietly, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. We're not going to Grandma and Grandpa's house at 9. We're going to find Charlie, and we're going to bring him home. But first, I need to make some calls." What if they already? Emma couldn't finish the sentence. They wouldn't. Jason was certain of this. They want leverage over us. Charlie's alive, probably already dropped off at a shelter or given to someone. They'll have a story ready about how it's better for you. But here's what they don't know. I'm very good at finding things. That's what I do for a living. I find a truth, and I document it. And I'm going to find Charlie. Emma wiped her eyes. "Really? I promise you." Jason pulled out his phone. "But after this, things are going to change. Your grandparents cross a line they can't come back from. You understand that?" She nodded slowly. At 11 years old, she understood more than she should have to. Jason's first call was to Rick Knight, his oldest friend from college, and the only person he truly trusted. Rick answered on the second ring, his voice groggy. "It's 7 in the morning on Christmas, Davis. This better be good. I need your help," Jason said. "And it's not going to be legal." Rick was silent for a moment. Then, "Give me 20 minutes. I'll be there." The second call was to the police non-emergency line. Jason reported a break-in and a stolen pet, giving them the facts in the flat, emotionless tone he'd perfected during his journalist days. Officer on duty said they'd send someone after the holiday. Not a priority. Fine. Jason hadn't expected help from them anyway. Rick Knight arrived 17 minutes later, still in sweatpants, but carrying his laptop bag. He'd been Jason's research partner on several documentaries, specializing in digital forensics and database searches. If someone had taken Charlie to a shelter, Rick could find which one. If they'd given him to a person, Rick could trace the connection. "Show me the note," Rick said, setting up his laptop on Jason's kitchen table. Jason handed it over. Rick photographed it from multiple angles. Handwriting analysis, fingerprints if we need it later. "Now, tell me about the window." "Forced entry," Jason said. "They jimmied the lock from outside. Used a ladder? Probably. There are marks in the snow below Emma's window." "Call the cops." "Filed a report. They don't care about a missing dog on Christmas." Rick nodded. "Smart. You got documentation. Now, these people, your in-laws. What kind of resources do they have?" "Harold's worth about $8 million. Marcia's family money adds another 3. Derek lives off them. And they took the dog because... Power play. They've been trying to get custody of Emma for 3 years. Want to send her to boarding school. Raise her as a proper Bowman." Jason's voice was flat, but his hands were clenched. "This is them showing me they can take whatever they want." Rick looked up from his laptop. "Jason, man, I've known you 15 years. I've never seen you like this. What are we really doing here?" Jason met his friend's eyes. "I'm going to destroy them, Rick. Not just get the dog back. I'm going to systematically dismantle their lives piece by piece until they understand what it feels like to have everything taken away. And I'm going to do it legally, publicly, and permanently." "That's a big ask." "I know." Jason pulled out a folder he'd kept hidden in his office safe for 3 years. Sarah knew things about Harold's business. Tax fraud, money laundering, bribery. She was going to expose him right before she died. Her breaks were cut. "Rick, I could never prove it, but I know Harold was involved. The documents Sarah compiled disappeared, but I've spent 3 years recreating her research. I have enough to bury him financially." Rick whistled low. "You've been planning this. Waiting for the right moment." They just gave it to me. Jason glanced toward the stairs where Emma was supposed to be resting. They broke into my home and stole my daughter's dog on Christmas morning. Left a note telling her not to make a scene. That's not grandparents being difficult. That's psychological abuse. And I'm done tolerating it. Okay, Rick said. I'm in. But first we find the dog. Because that little girl upstairs doesn't care about revenge. She cares about Charlie. Agreed. Jason pulled up the footage from his doorbell camera, installed after Sarah's death because paranoia had become his constant companion. I've got them on video. 2:47 a.m. Harold and Derek using a ladder to access Emma's window. Rick leaned forward. That's breaking and entering, plus burglary, which the cops won't prosecute on Christmas Day for a dog. But I will use it. Jason fast-forwarded through the footage. Watch. They put Charlie in Derek's car. He drove away. Harold followed in his own vehicle. Direction? East. Toward the interstate. Jason had already traced it as far as his cameras could reach. Derek's phone. Do you still have that software you used for the corruption documentary? Rick grinned. The cell tower tracker? Yeah. Give me his number. Jason provided it. Rick's fingers flew across the keyboard. This is super illegal, you know. I know. Okay. He's currently at. Rick paused. Harold and Marcia's address. Phone's been stationary since 3:15 a.m. But before that, he went to more typing. Evergreen Valley Animal Shelter. Dropped Charlie off at 3 a.m. Jason felt something unclench in his chest. He's alive. Shelter opens at 9. They'll scan his chip, see he's registered to you, and call. Rick looked up. Unless Harold arranged something else. What if he gave him a fake name? Said the dog was his. Then I go there and prove ownership. Emma can identify him. I have vet records, photos, the chip registration. Jason stood. We leave in 30 minutes. Emma comes with us. She deserves to be there when we get him back. And the revenge part starts immediately after. Jason's smile was cold. I made a promise to my daughter. Charlie comes home. But I also made a promise to myself 3 years ago that Harold Bowman would eventually pay for what he did to Sarah. He just moved up the timeline. Emma appeared in the doorway, dressed and ready. I heard. We're getting Charlie. We're getting Charlie, Jason confirmed. And then we're going to make sure your grandparents never hurt us again. The drive to Evergreen Valley Animal Shelter took 40 minutes. Emma sat in the back seat, silent and tense. Rick followed in his own car, still tracking Derek's phone and running background searches on Harold's business dealings. The shelter was just opening when they arrived. Jason walked to the counter with Emma beside him, both of them projecting calm they didn't feel. We're here about a golden retriever, Jason said to the young woman at the desk. Brought in early this morning, around 3 a.m. We believe he was dropped off by mistake. The woman, her name tag read Jess. Check her computer. Oh yes. Golden retriever, about 2 years old. Beautiful dog. Very friendly. She smiled at Emma. He's in kennel 12. But sir, the person who dropped him off said the dog was aggressive and bit his child. He signed a surrender form. Jason's jaw tightened. What name did he give? Derek Bowman. Said it was his dog, but he couldn't keep an animal that attacked his son. Derek Bowman is my cousin, Emma said quietly. That's my dog. His name is Charlie. He's never bitten anyone. Derek doesn't have any children. Jess looked between them, uncertainty crossing her face. The surrender form is legally binding. Once someone surrenders an animal. The dog is microchipped, Jason interrupted, keeping his voice level. Registered to me. Jason Davis. Check your scanner. You'll see the dog doesn't belong to Derek Bowman. He committed fraud by surrendering an animal he doesn't own. Jess hesitated, then grabbed a scanner. Let me get the dog. 5 minutes later, Charlie bounded into the lobby, tail wagging furiously when he saw Emma. The girl dropped to her knees, sobbing with relief as the dog licked her face and pressed against her. Jess scanned the microchip. Her expression shifted to anger. The chip is registered to Jason Davis at an address in Oakmont. That man lied to us. He said. She stopped, looking at Emma and Charlie. I'm so sorry. He seemed so convincing. Said the dog attacked his 4-year-old son. Derek Bowman doesn't have children, Jason said. He broke into our home last night, stole our dog, and brought him here with a false report to ensure we couldn't get him back easily. I'd like to file a formal complaint with your management. I'll get my supervisor." Jess disappeared into the back. 20 minutes later, Jason had given a full statement to the shelter manager, provided the video footage of the break-in, and filled out paperwork documenting Derek's fraud. The shelter manager, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia, promised to report the incident to police and ban Derek from their facilities. "Mr. Davis," Patricia said as they were leaving, "I have a daughter. If someone did this to her pet, I'd—" She trailed off. "I hope you pursue charges. People like that need consequences." "They'll get them," Jason promised. In the parking lot, Emma sat in the back seat with Charlie's head on her lap, whispering to him about how scared she'd been. Rick leaned against Jason's car. "Phase 1 complete," Rick said. "Dog retrieved, multiple people documenting what Derek did. Now what?" Jason checked his watch. 9:45 a.m. The Bowmans would be expecting them at their house, probably preparing some condescending speech about responsibility and proper pet ownership. "Now," Jason said, "I make a phone call." He dialed Harold's number. The old man answered on the first ring. "Jason, you're late. We said 9 o'clock. We're not coming." "Harold." Silence. Then, "Excuse me. We found Charlie. He's safe. No thanks to you or Derek." Jason's voice was ice. "You broke into my home. You traumatized my daughter. You committed multiple felonies. And you thought I'd just accept it. Now you listen here." "No, you listen." Jason watched Emma through the car window, the girl smiling for the first time that morning. "For 3 years, I've tolerated your insults, your manipulation, your attempts to take my daughter. I did it because Emma loves you, despite everything. But you crossed a line you can't come back from. You're being dramatic. The dog was making Emma too attached to that house. We did what was best. You broke into my house and stole a child's pet on Christmas morning." Jason let the words hang. "I have video footage. I have witness statements from the shelter. I have documentation of Derek committing fraud. And I'm going to use all of it. Are you threatening me?" Harold's voice turned dangerous. "Because I can make your life very difficult, Jason. I can tie you up in custody battles for years. I can." "No, Harold. I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you." Jason smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "You wanted to show me I had no power in this family. You wanted to prove you could take what Emma loves. Consider me educated. Now, let me educate you." He hung up. Rick was staring at him. That was either very brave or very stupid. It was necessary. Jason opened the car door. "Take Emma and Charlie home. Stay with them. I have some visits to make." "Jason, I need to do this alone, Rick, but I need you to keep them safe. Can you do that?" Rick nodded slowly. "What are you planning?" "Justice," Jason said. "The kind that sticks." He drove to the Bowman estate, a sprawling property in the wealthy suburb of Ashford Heights. Harold and Marcia's home was worth $2 million easily, all gleaming windows and manicured lawns. Derek's Audi sat in the circular driveway, still there from when Rick tracked his phone. Jason parked and walked to the front door. Rang the bell. Harold opened it, his face red with fury. "How dare you hang up on me? How dare you?" "I'm here to discuss terms," Jason said calmly, walking past Harold into the foyer. Marcia stood at the base of the grand staircase, Derek behind her. "Terms." Marcia's voice dripped with disdain. "You don't set terms with us, Jason. We're Emma's family. You're just the man who married our daughter. I'm the man who's about to destroy everything you've built." Jason pulled out his phone, showing them the video footage. Breaking and entering. Burglary. Fraud. That's just Christmas morning. Want to know what else I have? He pulled out the folder. Sarah's research on Harold's business dealings, now updated with 3 years of Jason's own investigation. Tax fraud dating back 15 years. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Bribes to city council members. The peer development deal where you paid off inspectors to ignore safety violations. 3 workers were injured in that collapse. Harold, you settled out of court to make it go away, but I have the original documentation. Harold's face went pale. Those are sealed records. I'm a journalist, Jason said mildly. I find things. That's my superpower, truth. And the truth is, you're a criminal. You've been breaking laws for decades, using your money and connections to avoid consequences. Sarah knew it. She was going to expose you. And I think that's why she died. Now you wait just a minute. Harold started forward, but Jason held up a hand. I can't prove you killed her. Yet. But I don't need to. I have enough to put you in prison for 20 years on the fraud alone. The IRS would love to see these documents. So would the state attorney general. And the media. Jason looked at each of them in turn. I can make you infamous, Harold. The wealthy real estate mogul who built his empire on corruption. Marcia, the socialite wife who looked the other way. Derek, the useless nephew who coasted on dirty money. What do you want? Marcia's voice shook. I want you to leave my daughter alone. Permanently. Jason's voice was steel. No more visits. No more phone calls. No more suggestions about boarding schools or proper upbringing. You give up any claim to Emma, legal or otherwise. You sign documents confirming that you will have no contact with her unless she initiates it as an adult. You can't do this, Derek snarled. You can't just. I can. Jason turned to face him. You broke into my home. You stole from us. You lied to a shelter to ensure we'd lose our dog permanently. You're the one who's going to face criminal charges, Derek. Unless your uncle and aunt convince me otherwise. Harold sank into a chair, suddenly looking older than his 68 years. You'd really do it. Send me to prison. Without hesitation, Jason confirmed. You took something from my daughter on Christmas morning and told her not to make a scene. Well, I'm making a scene, Harold. The biggest scene of your life. Unless you agree to my terms. And if we do, Marcia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. If we sign whatever you want, you'll keep those documents private? I'll hold on to them, Jason said. Insurance policy. If you ever try to contact Emma again, if you ever try to hurt her or me, if you so much as send her a birthday card she doesn't want, I release everything. To the IRS, to the media, to every law enforcement agency that has an interest. You'll spend your remaining years in court battles and prison cells. The silence stretched out. Jason waited, patient. He'd spent 3 years building this case. He could wait a few more minutes. Finally, Harold spoke. You're making a mistake. Emma needs family. She needs people who love her without conditions, Jason interrupted. She needs to grow up without your poison. You're not her family anymore. You're just the people who gave her mother away. The same mother you probably killed. We didn't. Marcia started, but Harold cut her off. Fine, he said. We'll sign. But, Jason, if you ever come at us with those documents, if you ever try to use them, then you'll already be in prison, Jason finished. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them. But know that if you leave them, I start making calls today. By tomorrow morning, your name will be on every news station in the state. He left the documents on the entry table. Copies, not originals. Have your lawyer draw up the custody release papers. Full and permanent. I'll review them. We'll sign. And then you'll never see Emma again unless she chooses otherwise. Jason walked out, leaving the 3 Bowmans standing in shocked silence. His hands were shaking as he got into his car, the adrenaline finally catching up with him. But he'd done it. He'd played the only card that would work with people like Harold, the threat of exposure, of losing everything they valued. He drove home to find Rick and Emma on the living room floor with Charlie between them, watching Christmas movies. Emma looked up when he entered. Hope and fear mixed on her face. It's done, Jason said. They'll leave us alone. Forever. Forever. Emma ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Thank you, Daddy. Jason held his daughter close, feeling the weight of the last 3 years finally beginning to lift. There would be more battles ahead. Lawyers, paperwork, making sure Harold kept his word. But the war was over. Emma was safe. Charlie was home. And the Bowmans had learned what happens when you corner someone who knows how to fight back with the truth. Rick stood, gathering his things. You okay? Getting there, Jason said. Thanks for your help. Anytime. Rick paused at the door. Sarah would be proud, you know, of how you protected Emma. After Rick left, Jason and Emma spent the rest of Christmas Day together. They opened presents, fewer this year, but more meaningful. Emma gave him a framed drawing she'd made of their family. Jason, Emma, and Charlie, with a small angel drawn in the corner that looked like Sarah. I wanted Mom to be part of Christmas, Emma explained, even if she can't be here. Jason hugged her tight, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. That evening, after Emma was asleep with Charlie curled up beside her, Jason sat in his office and looked at the original documents, the ones he hadn't shown Harold. Sarah's complete file on her father's crimes, including a final note she'd written 3 days before her death. Jason, if something happens to me, use these. Don't let him win, and don't let him take Emma. I trust you to protect our daughter. I love you. S. Jason filed the papers away, a promise kept and a new promise made. He'd protected Emma from the Bowmans. But someday, when she was older and ready to hear the truth, he'd tell her about her mother's courage and sacrifice. For now, though, they had Christmas. They had each other. And they had Charlie. That was enough. The knock came 3 days later, on a cold December morning. Jason was in his office, editing footage for his latest documentary about environmental conservation, when the sharp rap on the door echoed through the house. Emma was upstairs reading, Charlie at her feet. Jason opened the door to find 2 men in dark suits. Behind them, 2 police cruisers sat at the curb. His first thought was that Harold had broken their agreement, had somehow found a way to strike back. But the badges the men showed him weren't local police. "Mr. Jason Davis?" the taller one asked. "I'm Agent Philip Sexton, FBI. This is Agent Alan Fields. We need to speak with you about Harold Bowman." Jason's mind raced. "Come in." They sat in the living room. Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, but Jason gestured for her to go back to her room. She disappeared reluctantly. "Mr. Davis," Sexton began, "we understand you recently had an altercation with Harold Bowman regarding your daughter and a pet. My in-laws broke into my home and stole our dog. I retrieved him and made it clear there would be consequences if they bothered us again." Jason kept his voice measured. "Why is the FBI involved?" "Because 2 days ago, Harold Bowman walked into our field office and attempted to file a complaint against you. He claimed you were attempting to extort him with falsified documents about his business practices." Fields pulled out a notepad. "He wanted you arrested for blackmail." Jason felt cold spread through his chest. "Those documents aren't falsified." "We know," Sexton said. "That's why we're here. Not to arrest you. To ask what you know." Jason stared at them. "I don't understand." "Mr. Davis, we've been investigating Harold Bowman for 18 months as part of a larger probe into real estate corruption in this region. Tax fraud, money laundering, bribery of public officials. When he came in accusing you of extortion, he inadvertently confirmed that the documents existed and suggested they contained legitimate information about his illegal activities." Sexton leaned forward. "We'd like to see what you have. And if I share them with you, then Harold Bowman goes to prison." Fields said it flatly, along with several co-conspirators. "We have partial evidence, but what you described, documents compiled by his own daughter, that could make the difference between a case we can build slowly and a case we can close quickly." Jason thought about his confrontation with Harold, about the threat he'd made to keep the documents private if Harold left Emma alone, about whether giving them to the FBI constituted breaking that promise. Then he thought about Sarah, 3 years dead, her brakes cut, and her evidence stolen. About Emma, traumatized on Christmas morning. About the workers injured in Harold's building collapse because he'd paid off inspectors. "Sarah was my wife," Jason said quietly. "Harold's daughter. She compiled evidence against her father because she believed in doing the right thing, even when it cost her. I think she was killed for it. I can't prove that, but I believe it. And I've spent 3 years finishing what she started." He went to his office and returned with the full file. Everything Sarah had gathered, everything he'd added. Tax records, wire transfers, recorded conversations, photographs, testimonies from workers who'd been cheated or endangered by Harold's corner cutting. Sexton and Fields spent an hour reviewing the documents, their expressions growing more serious with each page. "This is comprehensive," Fields finally said. "Mr. Davis, this is evidence of federal crimes going back 2 decades. If even half of this holds up, it will," Jason interrupted. "Sarah was meticulous. So am I. Every document is verified. Every claim has supporting evidence. I used to be an investigative journalist. I know how to build a case." "Then why didn't you come to us?" Sexton asked. "Why keep this private?" "Because I wanted leverage." Jason met their eyes. My in-laws have been trying to take my daughter for 3 years. They think I'm unsuitable because I'm not wealthy enough, not Bowman enough. I needed something to make them back off permanently. These documents were my insurance policy. But now Harold went to the FBI and admitted the documents are real, which means he violated our agreement. Jason felt something dark and satisfied settle in his chest. He told me if I ever used those documents, he'd come at me with everything he had. He just did. So the agreement is void. Fields and Sexton exchanged glances. Mr. Davis, if we use this evidence, Harold Bowman will know it came from you. He can't do anything to me, Jason said. Not from prison. And that's where he's going, isn't it? Based on what we're seeing? Yes. Likely 10 to 15 years. Possibly more if we can prove conspiracy charges. Sexton closed the folder. We'll need your full cooperation. Testimony, depositions, possibly trial appearances. You'll have it. Jason stood. On one condition. My daughter doesn't get pulled into this. No testimony from her. No media attention on her. She's suffered enough because of the Bowmans. Agreed. She's a minor and a victim. We'll keep her out of it. Field stood as well. Mr. Davis, I have to ask. Did you plan this? The confrontation with Harold, knowing he might report you. Jason smiled slightly. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I tell stories. Sometimes the best stories are the ones where the bad guy defeats himself. He walked them to the door. Harold could have left us alone, could have signed the papers and disappeared from our lives. Instead, he went to federal authorities and confirmed he's been committing crimes serious enough that my documentation scared him. That's not strategy. That's karma. After they left, Jason stood at the window watching their cars pull away. Emma came downstairs, Charlie beside her. Dad? Were those police? FBI, Jason said. They're going to arrest Grandpa Harold. For crimes he committed. Crimes Mom knew about and was trying to stop. Emma processed this silently. Good, she said finally. He hurt people. He hurt Mom. He tried to hurt us. Yes, he did. Will we be okay? Jason pulled her close. We will. I promise. The next weeks unfolded like a carefully scripted film, which Jason documented obsessively. The FBI arrested Harold Bowman on a Thursday morning, perp walking him out of his office in handcuffs while news cameras rolled. The charges were extensive: tax evasion, wire fraud, money laundering, bribery, and conspiracy. The state attorney general added charges related to the building collapse that injured workers. Marcia Bowman, facing her own investigation for complicity, filed for divorce within a week. She claimed ignorance of Harold's crimes, a defense that fooled no one, but allowed her to separate her assets from his impending legal catastrophe. Derek Bowman found himself unemployed when Harold's real estate empire collapsed. No more allowance, no more trust fund distributions, no more luxury lifestyle. Jason heard through Rick that Derek had moved to a studio apartment and was working retail. The media ate up the story. Real estate mogul's downfall linked to daughter's secret investigation, read one headline. Dead woman's evidence sends father to prison, proclaimed another. Jason gave several interviews, always carefully controlling the narrative. He spoke about Sarah's courage, about her commitment to justice, about how she'd known her father was hurting people and refused to stay silent. He never mentioned the dog, never mentioned Christmas morning. That was private. Emma followed the news with careful attention, asking Jason to explain the legal proceedings. He kept it age-appropriate but didn't lie to her. She deserved to know that her mother had been a hero, that she'd stood up to a powerful man, even knowing the risk. Do you think Grandpa Harold really? Emma trailed off during one of these conversations. They were sitting in the living room, Charlie between them. Do you think he killed Mom? Jason had been dreading this question. I think it's possible, he said honestly. I think your mom threatened everything he valued, and I think the timing of her death was very convenient for him. But I can't prove it, Em. The police investigated. They ruled it an accident. But you don't believe that? No, Jason admitted. I don't. Emma nodded slowly. I miss her. Me too, sweetheart. Every day. They sat in silence for a while, Charlie snoring softly between them. Finally, Emma spoke again. Dad, I'm glad you didn't let them take Charlie. I'm glad you fought back. I'd fight the whole world for you, Jason said. That's what parents do. The trial took 8 months to reach conclusion. Jason testified for 2 days, presenting Sarah's documents and walking the jury through years of Harold's criminal activity. He was calm, methodical, and devastatingly effective. Harold's defense attorneys tried to paint him as a vengeful son-in-law with a grudge, but the evidence spoke for itself. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Harold Bowman was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. At 68 years old, it was effectively a life sentence. Marcia managed to avoid prosecution by cooperating with investigators, but her social standing never recovered. The Bowman name became synonymous with corruption and greed. Through it all, Jason focused on Emma. They created new Christmas traditions, ones that didn't involve toxic family gatherings. They traveled, visited Sarah's grave together, and slowly healed from years of the Bowmans' psychological manipulation. Emma started therapy, working through her grief over losing her mother and the complicated feelings about her grandfather's crimes. She told Jason one day that she was relieved not to have to pretend to love people who'd never really loved her back. Grandma Marcia always said she loved me, Emma said during one of their evening talks. But it felt like she loved the idea of me. The perfect Bowman granddaughter she could show off. Not the real me. Real love doesn't come with conditions, Jason said. It doesn't require you to be someone you're not. Like you and Mom loved each other. Like me and Mom loved each other. And like I love you. No matter what. Emma smiled. The genuine smile that had been so rare before Charlie came into their lives. I know, Dad. On the 1-year anniversary of the Christmas morning when everything changed, Jason and Emma held a small celebration. Not of the trauma, but of survival. Of the fact that they'd faced down people who tried to control and hurt them, and they'd won. Rick came over for dinner, bringing gifts for Emma and treats for Charlie. They ate too much pizza, watched movies, and didn't mention the Bowmans once. Later, after Emma had gone to bed, Rick and Jason sat on the back porch in the cold night air. You ever regret it? Rick asked. Sending those documents to the FBI? You could have just kept Harold away with the threat. No regrets, Jason said. Harold broke the agreement when he reported me. But even if he hadn't, I think I would have done it eventually. Sarah died, trying to stop him from hurting people. I owed it to her to finish what she started. She'd be proud of how you protected Emma, of how you got justice. I hope so. Jason looked up at the stars. Sometimes I wonder if she knows. If she can see that Emma's okay, that we're okay. You believe in that stuff? Afterlife. I believe Sarah's love didn't end when she died. I believe it's still protecting Emma somehow. Call it faith, call it hope, call it whatever you want. It helps me sleep at night. Rick nodded. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the kind that comes from old friendship and shared battles. What's next for you? Rick finally asked. Another documentary? Actually, yeah. About corruption in local government. How one person's courage can expose a system that protects the powerful. I'm calling it Evidence of Justice, a daughter's legacy. Jason smiled. It's Sarah's story. Emma approved. That's going to be amazing. I hope so. It's important that people know what Sarah did. That she stood up to her own father because it was right, even knowing the cost might be her life. Jason's voice was quiet but firm. Heroes don't always get recognized while they're alive, but they deserve to be remembered. Inside the house, Charlie barked once, his signal that Emma had gotten up for water. Jason stood. I should check on her. Go. I'll let myself out. Rick clasped Jason's shoulder. You did good, Davis. Your family, the one you built with Emma and Charlie, you kept it safe. That's what matters. Jason found Emma in the kitchen, filling Charlie's water bowl, even though she was supposed to be sleeping. She looked up guiltily. He was thirsty. Uh-huh. And you just happened to want cookies? Emma grinned, caught. Maybe. They sat at the kitchen table, sharing cookies and milk, Charlie's head on Emma's lap. This was peace, Jason thought. This was what he'd fought for. Not revenge, not even justice, though both had played their part. But this, quiet moments with his daughter, safety in their own home, love without conditions or threats. Dad, Emma said through a mouthful of cookie. Next Christmas, can we go somewhere? Like travel? I've always wanted to see the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon in winter? It'll be an adventure. Jason laughed. Okay, Grand Canyon it is. We'll make a road trip. You, me, and Charlie. The Three Musketeers, Emma said, repeating the phrase he'd used since she was small. The Three Musketeers, Jason agreed. They finished their cookies and headed back upstairs. Jason tucked Emma into bed, Charlie curling up in his usual spot at her feet. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them, remembering the darkness of 3 years ago and marveling at how far they'd come. Emma had survived losing her mother. She'd survived her grandparents' toxicity and manipulation. She'd survived the trauma of Christmas morning when they took Charlie. And through it all, she'd remained kind, intelligent, and strong. Just like Sarah. Jason closed the door softly and went to his own room. On the nightstand sat a photo of Sarah, taken a month before she died. She was laughing at something he'd said, her eyes bright with joy and love. He picked up the frame. We made it, he whispered. Emma's safe. Harold's in prison. Justice won. I kept my promise to you. The photo didn't answer, of course. But Jason felt a sense of peace settle over him anyway. He'd spent 3 years in a holding pattern, protecting Emma while waiting for the right moment to strike back at the people who'd hurt them. That moment had come, and he'd been ready. Now, finally, they could move forward, not as victims of the Bowman's cruelty, but as survivors who'd fought back and won. Jason set the photo down and looked out the window at the quiet street. Snow was beginning to fall again, covering the world in fresh white. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories to tell, new moments to share with Emma. But tonight they were safe. They were home, and they were together. That was everything. 5 years later, Jason stood at the back of a university auditorium, watching Emma accept an award for her investigative journalism piece about systemic corruption in family court systems. She was 16 now, confident and articulate, speaking about how her mother's courage had inspired her own commitment to exposing injustice. Charlie, older but still healthy, sat beside Jason's chair. The dog had become something of a legend in their neighborhood, the golden retriever who'd sparked a revolution, though only Jason and Emma knew that story fully. After the ceremony, Emma found him in the crowd. Did you see? They loved it. Of course they did. You're brilliant. Jason hugged her. Your mom would be so proud. I know. Emma's smile was bittersweet. I wish she could be here. She is, Jason said. In everything you do, every time you stand up for what's right, every time you refuse to let power go unchallenged. That's Sarah. That's her legacy living through you. They walked out into the spring evening, Charlie between them. Emma's article had exposed several judges who'd been taking bribes to influence custody decisions, harming countless families. It had sparked a state investigation and led to meaningful reform. At 16, she was already following in her mother's footsteps. Dad, Emma said as they reached the car. I've been thinking about Grandma Marcia. Jason tensed. They hadn't spoken about the Bowmans in years. What about her? She wrote to me. A letter. It came last week. Emma pulled an envelope from her bag. She wants to see me. Says she's sorry for everything, that she's changed. She's asking for forgiveness. Jason's first instinct was protective anger. But Emma was 16 now, old enough to make some decisions for herself. What do you want to do? I don't know. Emma stared at the letter. Part of me wants to believe she's sincere. She's alone now, Grandpa in prison, Derek moved away, all her society friends abandoned her. But another part remembers Christmas morning, remembers how she treated you, remembers that she watched Grandpa hurt people and did nothing. Those are valid feelings, Jason said carefully. All of them. What would Mom do? Jason considered. Your mom believed in accountability. She believed people should face consequences for their actions. But she also believed in redemption, if it was genuine. The question is whether Marcia's apology is real or just loneliness talking. Emma nodded slowly. I think I want to write back. Not to say yes to seeing her, but to tell her what she did wrong. To explain why I can't forgive her yet. Maybe someday, but not now. That sounds wise, Jason said. And Em, whatever you decide about your grandmother, now or in the future, I'll support you. This is your choice to make. They drove home through familiar streets, Charlie's head between the front seats. The house they pulled up to was the same one Jason and Sarah had bought when Emma was born, but it felt different now. Lighter. No longer haunted by the Bowman's shadow or Sarah's absence. Inside, Jason made dinner while Emma worked on her response to Marcia's letter. He heard her typing, pausing, typing again. It took her an hour, but when she emerged from her room, she looked satisfied. I told her the truth, Emma said, that she enabled Grandpa's crimes, that she tried to take Charlie away, that she made you feel worthless when you're the best father anyone could ask for. And I told her that if she really wants forgiveness, she needs to do the work, therapy, making amends, proving through actions, not words, that she's changed. That's mature of you, Jason said, meaning it. I learned from the best. Emma hugged him. You taught me that forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook. It's about releasing the hold their actions have on you. But that doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life. They ate dinner together, talking about Emma's plans for college, her next journalism project, whether Charlie needed a companion dog now that he was getting older. Normal family conversation, the kind Jason had dreamed of during those dark years after Sarah's death. That night, after Emma was asleep, Jason sat in his office reviewing footage for his latest documentary. He'd built a successful career telling stories of courage and justice, each project somehow connected to Sarah's legacy. He'd won awards, gained recognition, but the real victory was Emma, safe, thriving, becoming the kind of person who changed the world for the better. His phone buzzed. A message from Rick saw Emma's awards ceremony on the news. She's incredible. You both are. Drinks this weekend to celebrate. Jason smiled and typed back. Absolutely. My treat. He set the phone down and looked at the photo of Sarah that still sat on his desk. Older now, that photo, the colors slightly faded, but her smile remained bright, full of the love and strength that had defined her life. She's just like you, Jason said softly. Smart, brave, committed to doing right even when it's hard. You'd love the woman she's becoming. The house was quiet around him. Charlie snored in the hallway. Emma's bedroom door was closed, soft light seeping underneath, where she was probably reading past her bedtime. This was home. This was family. This was victory, not over the Bowman specifically, though that had been satisfying, but over fear, over grief, over the belief that they couldn't survive Sarah's loss. They'd survived. They'd thrived. And they'd done it together, protecting each other, fighting for each other, refusing to let anyone take away what they'd built from love and determination. Jason closed his laptop and headed upstairs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories, new moments of joy and difficulty. But tonight they had peace. They had each other. And they had the unshakable knowledge that when the world tried to break them, they'd fought back and won. That was enough. That would always be enough. Years from now, when Emma was grown and telling her own daughter about the Christmas her grandparents gave away her dog, she'd talk about the morning her father taught her that standing up to bullies, even family, was not just acceptable, but necessary. She'd talk about how one act of cruelty became a catalyst for justice, exposing corruption that had hurt countless people. She'd talk about courage coming in many forms. Her mother's investigation, her father's strategic patience, even a golden retriever's unconditional love. But most of all, she'd talk about how family isn't just blood. It's the people who fight for you, protect you, and love you without conditions. It's the bonds you choose and the love you defend. That was the real story. That was what mattered. And that was what Emma and Jason had built from ashes, something unbreakable, something true. The three musketeers, Jason, Emma, and Charlie. Together always. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. To all our viewers across America, Europe, Asia, and beyond, thank you for being part of our worldwide community. We hope you enjoy today's story, so let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Betrayal. The California sun blazed down on the UCLA Medical School campus, matching the fire in Damon Westlake's chest as he navigated through the crowds of graduates and their families. His hands trembled slightly as he held an envelope containing a certified check, his final payment toward the education of his fiancée, Vanessa Kincaid. Damon had met Vanessa 6 years ago during her undergraduate studies. He was 28, a self-made real estate developer who had built his fortune from nothing after growing up in foster care. She was 22, brilliant and ambitious, with dreams of becoming a neurosurgeon. Their connection had been immediate and intense. When Vanessa got accepted to medical school but couldn't secure enough financial aid, Damon hadn't hesitated. "I believe in you," he'd told her, promising to support her dreams. He'd liquidated investments, sold properties, and redirected his business profits to fund her education. $275,000 for tuition and living expenses, plus $8,000 each semester for books and supplies. Today was supposed to be their shared triumph. The graduation party he'd spent weeks planning at the Hotel Bel Air, inviting 200 of their closest friends and Vanessa's extended family. The celebration cost him another $85,000, but Damon considered it an investment in their future together. As he approached the grand ballroom, he spotted Vanessa in her elegant navy dress, her dark hair swept up, showcasing the diamond necklace he'd given her that morning. She was surrounded by a group of fellow graduates, including Dr. Maximilian Thornton, the hospital's young neurosurgery attending physician who'd been her mentor during clinical rotations. Vanessa's eyes met Damon's across the room, and what he saw there made his blood run cold. Not recognition or love, but something closer to annoyance. She whispered something to Max, who nodded and slipped away toward the bar. Damon approached, smiling. "There's my brilliant doctor," he said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. Vanessa stepped back, her face a perfect mask of confusion. She motioned subtly to a security guard nearby. "Excuse me," she said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I don't know him. Please make him leave my private event." The security guard, a hulking man with a buzz cut, stepped between them. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Damon stood frozen, the envelope still in his hand. "Vanessa, what are you doing? This is our engagement party as much as your graduation." Her eyes narrowed. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never been engaged." From behind him, a shrill laugh cut through the shocked silence. Vanessa's mother, Patricia, sauntered over, champagne flute in hand. "I guess the wedding's off, huh?" she said, her voice dripping with amusement. Always thought she could do better than a self-made nobody. Damon looked around at the faces watching, some confused, others embarrassed, a few clearly in on the joke. His gaze landed on Max, who now stood at Vanessa's side, his hand possessively at the small of her back. In that moment, everything crystallized for Damon. The late nights at the hospital, the weekends she couldn't see him because of study groups, the way she'd been pulling away emotionally for months while still allowing him to pay for everything. Damon straightened his shoulders and pocketed the envelope. He didn't raise his voice or make a scene. He simply smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Congratulations on your graduation, Dr. Kincaid," he said calmly. Then he turned and walked out of the ballroom, ignoring the whispers that followed him. In the privacy of his car, Damon finally allowed himself to feel the full weight of the betrayal. 6 years of his life, nearly $500,000. And most painfully, the future he believed in, all gone in an instant of public humiliation. As he drove away from the hotel, his mind cleared with startling rapidity. The pain transformed into something colder, more focused. By the time he reached his Malibu home, the seed of a plan had already taken root in his mind. Vanessa Kincaid and everyone who'd helped orchestrate his humiliation would learn a painful lesson. Damon Westlake might forgive many things, but betrayal was not among them. Chapter 2. The Assessment. 3 days after the graduation party, Damon sat in his home office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The wall-to-wall windows that had once inspired him now felt like a glass cage. He hadn't left the house since the incident, ignoring calls from confused friends and business associates who'd been invited to the party but told upon arrival that it had been canceled. On his desk lay a leather-bound notebook, its pages now filled with meticulous notes. Damon believed in thoroughness. It was how he built his business empire despite having no family connections or Ivy League education. He'd spent the first day allowing himself to feel everything: the humiliation, the rage, the heartbreak. The second day, he'd gathered intelligence, calling in favors from contacts throughout Los Angeles. Today, he was formulating his response. The intercom buzzed, and his assistant's voice came through. "Mr. Westlake, Nolan Preston is here to see you." "Send him up," Damon replied. Nolan was the closest thing Damon had a family. They'd met in the same foster home at ages 12 and 13, forming a bond that had survived decades. Where Damon had channeled his difficult childhood into building legitimate businesses, Nolan had taken a different path. After a stint in the military, he'd worked in private security with skills that occasionally blurred ethical lines. "You look like hell," Nolan said as he entered, his tall frame filling the doorway. Damon gestured to the chair across from him. "I've been better." Nolan sat down, his expression serious. "I heard about what happened. Some of it, anyway. Want to fill me in?" For the next hour, Damon explained everything. The relationship with Vanessa, the financial support, the very public rejection. "She played you," Nolan said bluntly when Damon finished. "Not just played. In that doctor planned this. They waited until she had her degree, until she had everything she needed from me." Damon pushed a folder across the desk. "This is what my investigator found in 2 days. They've been seeing each other for at least a year. And look at this." He pointed to a bank statement. "She's been siphoning money from our joint account, small amounts at first, then larger sums as graduation approached. Nearly $150,000 in total, on top of everything I knowingly gave her." Nolan whistled. "That's cold. What about legal options?" "I've spoken to my attorney. Without a written agreement about the education expenses, it's considered a gift. The joint account funds are trickier, but pursuing it would drag this into the public eye. I'd rather handle this privately." "What do you have in mind?" Nolan asked, recognizing the look in his friend's eyes. Damon turned his laptop to show a series of property listings. "I've been tracking Dr. Thornton's career. He's being courted by Philadelphia General to head their neurosurgery department. It's a prestigious position, one he's planning to use to bring Vanessa in as a resident, bypassing the normal match process. And I've just purchased the building where they've signed a lease for their new apartment." Damon's smile was razor sharp. "That's just the beginning." "Damon," Nolan said carefully, "whatever you're planning." "I'm not going to break any laws," Damon interrupted. "Not directly, but I want to make sure they lose everything that matters to them, just as they've done to me. You'll need help. That's why you're here. I also need information on Patricia Kincaid, Vanessa's mother. She knew about this all along, encouraged it even. She's always resented me for not coming from old money like her ex-husband." Nolan nodded. "What about your business? You've built something significant. Are you willing to risk it?" Damon looked out at the ocean, his expression hardening. "I built my first company from nothing. I can do it again if necessary. But that won't be required. This isn't about destroying myself to hurt them. It's about being smarter, more patient, and more ruthless than they expect." "The Damon I know has always been calculated," Nolan observed. "Don't let emotion cloud your judgment." "Emotion isn't clouding my judgment," Damon replied, his voice eerily calm. "It's clarifying it. For 6 years, I lived with blinders on, believing in something that wasn't real. Those blinders are gone now." He stood and walked to the window. "I'm not acting out of anger, Nolan. This is about justice. They took years of my life, hundreds of thousands of my dollars, and my dignity. Now I'm going to take everything from them. Not in a burst of revenge, but systematically, piece by piece." Nolan recognized the determination in his friend's voice. This wasn't a passing rage. This was Damon at his most focused. "Where do we start?" Nolan asked. Damon turned, his face impassive. "We start by understanding our targets completely. Their hopes, their dreams, their weaknesses. Then we use that knowledge to dismantle their world, one foundation stone at a time." Chapter 3. The Blueprint. 1 month after the graduation party, Damon's Malibu home had transformed into a war room. The dining room walls were covered with information about his targets: Vanessa Kincaid, Maximilian Thornton, and Patricia Kincaid. Damon stood before the display with Nolan and two other individuals. Riley Blackburn, a brilliant young woman who'd worked as Damon's financial analyst before starting her own consulting firm, and Phoenix Montgomery, a former tech security specialist with an unsettling ability to access information that was supposedly secure. "Thank you all for coming," Damon said. "What I'm about to share requires absolute discretion." After explaining the situation, he turned to the profiles on the wall. "These are our primary targets. Our goal is not just revenge, but justice. They took from me methodically over years. I intend to respond in kind." Phoenix raised an eyebrow. "Just to be clear, you're not asking us to do anything illegal, right? Nothing that would land any of us in prison," Damon confirmed. "But I'm asking you to help me orchestrate a series of perfectly legal maneuvers that will, when combined, dismantle the lies they've planned for themselves." Riley studied the financial documents pinned to the wall. "It's impressive how deliberately she extracted resources from you. This wasn't impulsive, it was calculated." "Exactly," Damon agreed. "Vanessa spent years positioning herself to take maximum advantage of my support before discarding me at the precise moment when she no longer needed me." He pointed to Dr. Thornton's section of the wall. "Maximilian Thornton comes from a wealthy Philadelphia family with deep connections in the medical world. His father sits on the board of Philadelphia General. That's how he secured not only his own position, but a guaranteed residency spot for Vanessa outside the standard match process." "Nepotism at its finest," Nolan commented. "Indeed." "And Patricia Kincaid," Damon continued, pointing to the third section. "She's been financially dependent on her ex-husband's family wealth, which is dwindling due to her extravagant spending habits. She pushed Vanessa to link herself to money. First mine, now the Thorntons." Phoenix tapped his tablet. "I managed to access some of their communications. They've been planning this for at least 18 months. Waiting until after graduation was strategic, ensuring Vanessa had her credentials before burning bridges." Damon nodded grimly. "I've outlined a 3-phase approach." He moved to a whiteboard with a flowchart. "Phase 1, acquisition and positioning. I've already purchased the Philadelphia building where they've leased an apartment. I've also acquired a significant stake in several businesses connected to the Thornton family through shell companies." Phase 2, disruption. Once they're settled in Philadelphia, we begin systematically dismantling their professional and personal plans through entirely legal means. Riley skimmed the financial projections. "This is comprehensive and expensive. I'm prepared to invest up to $2 million in this project," Damon said without hesitation. "Consider it the cost of justice." "And Phase 3, Nolan asked. "Revelation," Damon replied. "When they're at their most vulnerable, they'll learn exactly who orchestrated their downfall and why." Phoenix looked concerned. "That seems risky, letting them know it was you." "The entire point is for them to know," Damon explained. "Not just to suffer losses, but to understand they're facing the consequences of their actions." "What's our timeline?" Riley asked. "They moved to Philadelphia in 6 weeks. We have until then to complete our preparations." Damon distributed folders to each person. "These contain your specific assignments and compensation details. I'm offering each of you $250,000 for 6 months of work, with a $250,000 bonus upon successful completion." Phoenix whistled. $500,000 each? You really are serious." "Completely," Damon confirmed. "But I need absolute commitment. Once we begin, there's no backing out." The room fell silent as they considered the magnitude of what Damon was proposing. Finally, Nolan spoke. "I'm in. Not for the money, but because what they did was wrong." Riley nodded. "The financial challenge alone is intriguing. I'm in as well." Phoenix hesitated longest. "This goes beyond my usual contracts, but the compensation is persuasive. Count me in with one condition. If anything veers into truly illegal territory, I walk." "Fair enough," Damon agreed. "I don't want anyone crossing lines they're uncomfortable with. That said, we'll be operating in gray areas at times." He moved to the window, looking out at the ocean. "I spent years building a life around a lie. Now I'm going to rebuild around a purpose." They taught me a valuable lesson about trust and betrayal. It's time I return the favor." As his three associates reviewed their assignments, Damon felt a cold clarity he hadn't experienced before. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into fuel for a precision-engineered response. Vanessa and her accomplices had seen him as a stepping stone to be used and discarded. They were about to discover just how dangerous it was to underestimate Damon Westlake. Chapter 4. The Groundwork. Philadelphia in late August was sweltering, the humidity wrapping around Damon like a wet blanket as he exited his rental car. He straightened his tailored suit and approached the imposing limestone building on Rittenhouse Square that now belonged to him. Under normal circumstances, he would have delegated this meeting to a property manager, but these were not normal circumstances. He wanted to personally welcome the building's newest tenants. In the 6 weeks since forming his team, Damon had executed the first phase of his plan with surgical precision. Beyond purchasing the building, he'd established a new identity as Devin Morrison, a real estate investor with impeccable credentials crafted by Phoenix. This persona would allow him to move freely in Philadelphia without raising suspicions. The building's manager, Louisa Winters, greeted him in the marble lobby. She had no idea of his true identity or motivations, believing him to be simply a demanding new owner. "Mr. Morrison, welcome to Philadelphia," she said, extending her hand. "The penthouse is ready for your inspection, and I've scheduled meetings with all the contractors as requested." "Excellent," Damon replied. "And the new tenants?" "The ones taking the 4th floor corner unit. Dr. and Dr. Thornton are moving in tomorrow. Everything has been prepared according to their lease specifications." Damon suppressed a flinch at hearing Vanessa referred to with Maximilian's surname, though they weren't yet married. "I'd like to review their unit today. It's important that our medical professionals have an impeccable living experience." As they toured the apartment, Damon absorbed every detail. The views of Rittenhouse Square, the renovated kitchen with marble countertops, the master suite where Vanessa would sleep with her new partner. He felt nothing. No jealousy, no pain, just cold assessment. "The security upgrades I requested?" he asked. "All installed," Louisa confirmed. "New cameras in all common areas, the advanced key card system, and the special modifications to this unit's systems." Those special modifications included subtle surveillance equipment Phoenix had designed, nothing that would record private moments, but enough to monitor comings and goings, visitors, and conversations in common areas. Not technically legal, but undetectable. "Perfect," Damon said. "I'll need daily reports on all building operations for the first month." After concluding the inspection, Damon met Nolan at a cafe 3 blocks away. "Everything's set?" Nolan asked over coffee. Damon nodded. "They have no idea their new home is owned by the man they betrayed." "What about your end?" "Phase 1 is complete," Nolan confirmed. "I've secured a position with the hospital's security contractor. Starting next week, I'll have access to Philadelphia General. Riley has established financial footholds in the companies we identified, and Phoenix has their digital lives mapped out. And Patricia Kincaid, arriving next week to help them settle in. She's booked at the Rittenhouse Hotel, where, coincidentally, I've arranged for you to cross paths with her." Damon's expression remained neutral. "She won't recognize me. It's been years since we met, and I've changed my appearance significantly." He ran a hand over his now bearded face and shorter, differently styled hair. "What about your businesses in California?" Nolan asked, operating smoothly under management. "I've told everyone I'm exploring East Coast expansion opportunities, which is technically true." Damon sipped his coffee. "How are our ancillary targets?" "The hospital board members are mapped out, including their relationships with the Thornton family. We've identified the weak links and potential pressure points." Damon nodded. Tomorrow, Vanessa and Maximilian begin their new life in Philadelphia. They're expecting a smooth transition to the next phase of their perfect plan. Instead, they're walking into the first chamber of a labyrinth I've designed specifically for them. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Nolan asked quietly. "Once we move to phase 2, there's no going back." Damon's eyes hardened. "I gave Vanessa everything. My trust, my support, my future. She took it all and publicly discarded me when I was no longer useful. This isn't about heartbreak anymore, Nolan. It's about consequences. Later that evening, Damon stood in his penthouse overlooking the city. His phone buzzed with a text from Phoenix. Target vehicles on the move. ETA, Philadelphia. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. He moved to a laptop set up on the dining table and opened a series of files labeled Phase 2, Disruption. Each contained meticulously detailed plans targeting different aspects of Vanessa and Maximilian's lives. Career, finances, reputation, relationships. Each would be systematically compromised, not through crude attacks, but through sophisticated maneuvers that would appear as unfortunate circumstances or the results of their own actions. Damon closed the laptop and poured himself a glass of scotch. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Chapter 5, The Excavation. Patricia Kincaid frowned at her reflection in the Rittenhouse Hotel's elevator mirror, adjusting her designer scarf. At 62, she prided herself on maintaining the appearance of a woman a decade younger, thanks to rigorous cosmetic interventions and a wardrobe budget that consistently outpaced her alimony payments. As the elevator doors opened to the hotel's upscale restaurant, she mentally prepared for her dinner with Vanessa and Maximilian. After a week of helping them settle into their new apartment, she was exhausted but satisfied. Her daughter had successfully traded up from the self-made real estate developer to the heir of a Philadelphia medical dynasty, exactly as Patricia had coached her to do. The maitre d' led her to a private corner table where a distinguished-looking man sat alone, focused on his tablet. Patricia barely glanced at him, scanning the restaurant for her daughter. "Mrs. Kincaid," the maitre d' said, "your party has been delayed. Dr. Thornton called to say they'll be at least an hour late due to a hospital emergency. He asked if you'd like to wait at the bar, where your drinks will be complimentary." Patricia sighed dramatically. "Very well." As she turned to leave, the man at the adjacent table looked up. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying a smooth, cultured tone. "I couldn't help overhearing. If you'd like company while you wait, I'd be honored to buy you a drink. I'm dining alone tonight." Patricia assessed him quickly. Expensive suit, Patek Philippe watch, confident bearing. He appeared to be in his early 50s, with salt and pepper hair and an impressive physique for his age. "That's very kind," she replied, extending her hand. "Patricia Kincaid." "Devin Morrison," Damon said, using his alias. "Real estate investment." 20 minutes later, they were deep in conversation at the bar, Patricia increasingly animated as she worked on her second martini. "So you're just visiting Philadelphia?" Devin asked. "Helping my daughter and her fiancé settle in," Patricia explained proudly. "He's joining Philadelphia General as head of neurosurgery, and she's starting her residency there." "Impressive," Devin commented. "Medical families tend to have strong connections in this city." "The Thorntons certainly do," Patricia agreed, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Though between us, navigating those old money families can be exhausting. All traditions and obligations." Devin nodded sympathetically. "I know exactly what you mean. My late wife's family was similar, Boston banking dynasty. The politics were relentless. This fabricated background instantly established a connection." Patricia leaned closer. "Exactly. Maximilian is wonderful, but his parents are so rigid. Everything must reflect perfectly on the family. I worry sometimes about the pressure on Vanessa." "She's fortunate to have a mother who understands these dynamics," Devin commented. "Many would be overwhelmed." Patricia preened at the compliment. "Well, I've always tried to guide her toward the right opportunities. Her previous relationship was a stepping stone, necessary at the time, but not suitable for the long term." Damon kept his expression neutral despite the surge of cold anger. "Oh, how so?" "He had money, but not connections," Patricia explained dismissively. "New money, self-made. Useful while she needed medical school funding, but no family background to speak of. Literally raised in foster care, if you can imagine." "How did that relationship end?" Devin asked, signaling the bartender for another round. Patricia laughed lightly. "Rather dramatically, at her graduation party that he paid for. Vanessa had already secured her future with Maximilian by then, so it was time to make a clean break. She sounds like a strategic thinker, Devin observed, his tone carefully balanced between admiration and neutral interest. I raised her to be, Patricia said proudly. In this world, women need to use every advantage. She secured her education, made the right connections, and positioned herself perfectly. I couldn't be prouder. Devin checked his watch. Your daughter and her fiancé should be arriving soon. Would you allow me to host all of you for dinner? I'd love to hear more about the Philadelphia medical community. I'm considering some healthcare real estate investments. Patricia's eyes lit up at the potential connection. That would be lovely. I'm sure Maximilian would have valuable insights for you. When Vanessa and Maximilian arrived 40 minutes later, they found Patricia chatting animatedly with a distinguished older gentleman. Damon had prepared meticulously for this moment, studying photographs to ensure his disguise would hold even at close range. The beard, different hairstyle, colored contacts, and subtle facial prosthetics that altered his cheekbones and jawline made him unrecognizable to someone who hadn't seen him in months. There they are, Patricia exclaimed. Darlings, this is Devin Morrison, a fascinating real estate investor I've been chatting with. He's kindly offered to join us for dinner. Maximilian extended his hand. Dr. Maximilian Thornton. This is my fiancée, Dr. Vanessa Kincaid. A pleasure, Devin said smoothly, shaking their hands. If Vanessa felt any spark of recognition, she showed no sign of it. Her eyes passed over him with the polite disinterest she might show any stranger. Over dinner, Devin expertly extracted information while appearing to simply engage in business networking. He learned about Maximilian's challenges with certain board members, Vanessa's concerns about fitting into the hospital's culture, and their upcoming engagement party at the Thornton family estate. By the time they parted ways, exchanging business cards and promises to connect again, Damon had gathered invaluable intelligence while planting the seeds for Phase 2. Patricia had his contact information and was already planning to introduce him to other useful people in their social circle. Back in his penthouse, Damon briefed his team via secure video conference. The infiltration was successful, he reported. They suspect nothing. Riley looked impressed. The disguise worked that well? Even up close. Completely, Damon confirmed. I could have told Vanessa exactly who I was, and she still wouldn't have seen past the facade. People see what they expect to see. And the intelligence? Phoenix asked. Better than anticipated. We now have details on specific hospital board dynamics, social events they're planning to attend, and personal concerns they're not sharing publicly. Nolan, speaking from his new apartment near the hospital, added, I start at the hospital security office tomorrow. Between your access through Patricia and mine through the facility, we'll have comprehensive coverage. Good, Damon said. It's time to move to the next stage. Phoenix, implement the first digital disruptors. Riley, begin the financial maneuvers we discussed. And Nolan, start mapping the hospital's informal power structures. After the call ended, Damon reviewed the dossiers on his targets, adding new information from the evening's conversation. The more he learned about how deliberately they had used him, the more his resolve hardened. Vanessa hadn't just broken his heart. She and her mother had cold-bloodedly planned his exploitation from the beginning. Maximilian had knowingly participated in the deception, helping Vanessa maintain the facade while establishing their relationship behind Damon's back. Soon, they would begin experiencing the first coincidental difficulties in their perfectly planned new life. Nothing dramatic, just enough to create confusion and stress. By the time they realized these events formed a pattern, it would be too late to stop what was coming. Chapter 6. The Foundation Cracks. 2 months into Phase 2, Damon sat in his Philadelphia penthouse, reviewing progress reports from his team. Outside, autumn had transformed Rittenhouse Square into a canvas of red and gold, but Damon had little interest in the seasonal beauty. His focus remained entirely on the systematic dismantling of his targets' lives. Progress update, he commanded as his 3 associates gathered around the conference table. Riley began. Financial disruption is proceeding as planned. Through our minority stakeholder positions in Thornton Family Investments, I've successfully initiated 3 separate SEC compliance reviews. Nothing illegal, just enough regulatory attention to create significant distraction for Maximilian's father. The board position Dr. Thornton was promised. Damon asked. Delayed indefinitely due to administrative concerns. Riley confirmed with a tight smile. His family's influence at the hospital is experiencing unexpected resistance. I've also arranged for 3 major donors to delay their pledges to his department, citing budgetary reviews. Excellent. Damon turned to Phoenix. Digital sphere? The tech specialist looked up from his tablet. The selective communication disruptions are working beautifully. Important emails disappear or arrive late. Calendar invitations fail to sync properly. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to make them appear disorganized and unreliable. And the social engineering? Damon pressed. We've successfully introduced subtle conflicts in their professional relationships, Phoenix confirmed. Dr. Reynolds now believes Maximilian took credit for his research, while Dr. Westwood thinks Vanessa spoke negatively about her diagnostic skills. Neither actually happened, Nolan added, but the manufactured evidence was convincing enough. Damon nodded, satisfied. And the living situation? Nolan suppressed a smile. The building issues have been effective. Intermittent problems with temperature control, water pressure, and elevator function. All perfectly timed to maximum inconvenience, yet all within code when inspectors check. Their apartment specifically? Experiencing the most random issues, Nolan confirmed. The building manager is apologetic but increasingly frustrated with their complaints, as no problems can be duplicated when maintenance arrives. Damon allowed himself a small smile. And Vanessa's residency performance? Struggling, Phoenix reported. The scheduling errors have caused her to miss 2 important procedures. Her evaluation metrics are being subtly altered. Not enough to trigger formal investigation, but enough to place her in the bottom quartile of her peer group. The psychological impact? Damon asked. Nolan consulted his notes. According to our surveillance, significant strain is showing. 3 major arguments in the past week alone. Maximilian is increasingly short-tempered as his promised resources fail to materialize. Vanessa is questioning whether moving to Philadelphia was a mistake. And Patricia? Still completely charmed by Devin Morrison, Nolan reported. She's introduced you to 8 key social contacts, including 2 hospital board members. Your investment discussions have given you legitimate access to insider information about hospital operations. Damon nodded, satisfied with their progress. Initiate the next phase of social disruption. It's time to introduce more significant complications. The following evening, Damon, as Devin Morrison, attended a charity gala at the Philadelphia Art Museum. Patricia had ensured his invitation, eager to foster connections between her new friend and the city's elite. He spotted Vanessa and Maximilian across the grand hall, their body language tense despite their polished appearance. Maximilian kept checking his phone, his expression growing increasingly frustrated. Damon approached casually, champagne in hand. Dr. Thornton, Dr. Kincaid, wonderful to see you again. Vanessa forced a smile. Mr. Morrison, Mother mentioned you might be here. Philadelphia's medical community is remarkably interconnected, Devin commented. I've been having fascinating conversations about healthcare investment opportunities. Maximilian's phone buzzed again. He checked it, his jaw tightening. Excuse me, he muttered, stepping away to make a call. Everything all right? Devin asked Vanessa with well-practiced concern. She hesitated. Just hospital politics. Nothing important. Ah, politics, Devin nodded sympathetically. Often the most challenging aspect of any profession. Maximilian was promised certain support that seems to be delayed, Vanessa admitted, clearly frustrated. And my residency schedule has been chaotic. Not what we expected when we relocated. I'm sorry to hear that, Devin said. I know several board members. Perhaps I could make some introductions that might help clarify the situation. Vanessa's eyes lit up with hope. That would be incredibly helpful. Consider it done, Devin promised. In fact, Walter Blackburn is here tonight. He chairs the hospital's finance committee. Shall we speak with him now? The introduction was perfectly calculated. Damon had already cultivated a relationship with Blackburn, feeding him carefully crafted concerns about hospital management that aligned with the disruptions Riley had orchestrated. As Vanessa and Maximilian eagerly engaged with Blackburn, Damon observed the interaction with cold satisfaction. They were now unwittingly participating in their own undoing, pursuing solutions that would only deepen their problems. Later that week, Damon convened another team meeting. Phase 2 is accelerating effectively, he announced. Their professional and personal stress levels are escalating precisely as planned. Now we begin introducing more severe disruptions. Riley looked concerned. The financial maneuvers we've discussed for this stage come very close to market manipulation, but remain technically legal, Damon countered. We're simply leveraging information available to any astute investor. And a reputation management component? Phoenix asked. Proceed as planned, Damon instructed. Begin seeding the questions about Vanessa's qualifications and Maximilian's research ethics. Nothing directly accusatory, just enough to create doubt. Nolan cleared his throat. Damon, I need to report complication. Vanessa reached out to your former assistant in California yesterday. She's trying to contact you. The room fell silent. This was unexpected. Why? Damon asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Apparently, she's been denied a loan refinancing for her medical school debt. The lender flagged something in her financial history, something connected to the joint accounts you once shared. Damon's expression remained impassive, but his mind raced. This wasn't part of his plan, at least not yet. Did my assistant give her my contact information? No, Nolan confirmed. As instructed, she said you were traveling internationally and unreachable. Damon considered this development. This is actually useful. It increases her financial pressure while simultaneously reminding her of her dependency on me in the past. There's more, Nolan added hesitantly. We intercepted a call between Vanessa and her mother. Vanessa mentioned feeling like she's being punished for how she ended things with you. She's beginning to wonder if these coincidences are connected. A slow smile spread across Damon's face. Perfect. Let her wonder. Let her begin to question whether her current troubles are random or deserved. The psychological impact of uncertainty is far more powerful than any direct confrontation. Phoenix frowned. If she suspects you, couldn't that compromise the entire operation? Suspicion without proof only increases psychological stress, Damon explained. She betrayed someone who trusted her completely. Deep down, she knows she deserves consequences. That knowledge will eat at her, making her question everything and everyone around her. And if she starts investigating, Riley asked, she'll find nothing concrete, Damon assured them. Every action we've taken is either completely legal or impossible to trace. Let her chase ghosts. As his team continued their report, Damon felt a cold satisfaction. Phase 2 was working even better than anticipated. His targets were beginning to fracture under pressure, their carefully constructed new life developing cracks exactly where he had designed them to appear. Soon, they would be ready for Phase 3, Revelation. Chapter 7, The Collapse. December arrived in Philadelphia with bitter cold and the first heavy snow of the season. From his penthouse window, Damon watched as workers strung holiday lights across Rittenhouse Square. 5 months had passed since he'd begun implementing his plan, and the results had exceeded his expectations. The Thornton family's financial stability was showing visible cracks. Maximilian's promised position at the hospital had been downgraded twice, his department budget slashed by 40%. Vanessa was now on academic probation in her residency program due to a series of documentation errors that Phoenix had meticulously engineered. Most satisfyingly, their relationship was disintegrating under the strain. The surveillance in their apartment had captured increasingly bitter arguments, with Vanessa accusing Maximilian of misleading her about his influence at the hospital, and Maximilian suggesting that Vanessa's performance issues were reflecting poorly on his family name. Damon's team gathered for their weekly update, the atmosphere tense with anticipation. They had reached a critical juncture. Financial status? Damon asked Riley. They're underwater, she reported clinically. Maximilian's family has lost approximately 22% of their investment portfolio value due to our targeted maneuvers. The tax audit we triggered has frozen significant assets. Meanwhile, Vanessa's attempt to refinance her medical school debt has been rejected by 7 different lenders due to the inconsistencies we planted in her credit history. Professional standing. Damon turned to Phoenix. Maximilian is now viewed with suspicion by key hospital administrators. The research irregularities we suggested have prompted an internal review. Nothing will be proven, but the cloud of suspicion won't dissipate easily. Phoenix swiped through his tablet. Vanessa's reputation among her peers is equally compromised. The selective communication disruptions have made her appear unreliable and arrogant. Social status? Damon asked Nolan. In free fall, Nolan confirmed. They've been excluded from 3 major holiday events. The Thornton family is distancing themselves from Maximilian's poor judgment in his professional decisions. Patricia Kincaid has returned to California, apparently unwilling to be associated with their declining situation. Damon nodded, satisfied. In the apartment building, the final straw, Nolan reported with a grim smile. The notification of non-renewal was delivered yesterday, citing excessive complaints and disruption to other residents. They have 60 days to find new accommodations, in a market where we've ensured no comparable properties are available. Excellent, Damon said quietly. It's time for Phase 3. Riley looked concerned. Are you certain? Once we reveal your identity, there's no going back. That's precisely the point, Damon replied. They've experienced months of escalating consequences without understanding the source. Now, they'll learn exactly who orchestrated their downfall and why. Later that evening, Damon, still in his Devin Morrison disguise, invited Maximilian for drinks, an exclusive club, ostensibly to discuss potential investment in a medical technology startup. The desperate doctor had eagerly accepted, seeing this as a possible financial lifeline. The private room Damon had reserved offered spectacular views of the snow-covered city. Maximilian arrived 15 minutes late, looking haggard despite his expensive suit. Devin, thank you for meeting, he said, shaking Damon's hand firmly. These investment opportunities couldn't come at a better time. Before we discuss business, Devin said smoothly, I wonder if you might indulge my curiosity about something personal. Maximilian looked wary but nodded. Of course. I understand Dr. Kincaid was previously engaged to someone else before you. A California real estate developer. Maximilian's expression tightened. A brief relationship. Nothing serious. Interesting, Devin mused. I heard he funded her entire medical education. That seems rather significant. Who told you that? Maximilian asked sharply. Patricia mentioned it, Devin replied calmly. She seemed quite amused by how it ended. At a graduation party he paid for, I believe. Maximilian shifted uncomfortably. That's all in the past. Vanessa made the right choice for her future. Did she? Devin asked, his voice changing subtly. Because from where I sit, her future looks increasingly bleak. Maximilian froze, studying Devin's face more carefully. What are you implying? Damon reached up and removed his colored contact lenses, then slowly peeled away the prosthetics that had altered his facial structure. I'm not implying anything, Dr. Thornton. I'm stating a fact. Vanessa didn't make the right choice. She made a catastrophic one. Recognition dawned in Maximilian's eyes, followed by confusion and then fear. Westlake, Damon Westlake. The very same, Damon confirmed, his voice now returned to its natural cadence. The man who spent 6 years of his life and nearly $500,000 supporting Vanessa, only to be publicly humiliated and discarded. Maximilian stood abruptly. Whatever game you're playing. This is no game, Damon interrupted calmly. This is justice. Every setback you've experienced in Philadelphia, every unexpected obstacle, every stroke of bad luck, all orchestrated by me. That's impossible, Maximilian insisted, though his pallor suggested he was beginning to believe it. Is it? Damon opened a laptop on the table between them. Your apartment building? I own it. The hospital board members who've cooled toward you? I've been whispering in their ears for months. The financial pressures on your family? Engineered by my team. He turned the screen toward Maximilian, showing a comprehensive timeline of their systematically dismantled life. You're insane, Maximilian whispered. No, Damon replied. I'm methodical. You and Vanessa taught me an important lesson about betrayal. I'm simply ensuring you fully understand the curriculum. Maximilian lunged suddenly, grabbing Damon's lapels. You've destroyed everything we've worked for. Damon didn't resist, his calm unshaken. Security cameras are recording this, Dr. Thornton. Assaulting me would only add to your problems. Maximilian released him, stepping back. What do you want? Money? I'll pay back whatever Vanessa took from you. This was never about money, Damon said. It's about consequences. You participated in a calculated deception that stole years of my life. Now I've taken something from you in return. Your reputation, your career trajectory, your relationship. We're getting married next month, Maximilian said desperately. Damon smiled coldly. No, you're not. Vanessa is currently meeting with my associate Riley, who is explaining everything to her, just as I'm explaining it to you. By tomorrow, your engagement will be another casualty of my plan. Maximilian collapsed back into his chair. Why reveal yourself now? Why not just continue secretly ruining our lives? Because understanding is crucial to justice, Damon explained. I want you to know exactly who did this to you and why. I want you to spend the rest of your career looking over your shoulder, wondering if your next setback is bad luck or my continued influence. He stood, straightening his suit. Our business is concluded, Dr. Thornton. You're free to try rebuilding your life, though I wouldn't recommend Philadelphia as the location for that effort. Your reputation here is, shall we say, permanently compromised. As Damon walked to the door, Maximilian called after him. This won't bring back those 6 years she took from you. Damon turned, his expression serene. No, it won't. But watching you both suffer the consequences of your actions has been surprisingly satisfying compensation. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The Jefferson Hotel's presidential suite offered panoramic views of downtown Philadelphia, the city lights glimmering against the night sky. Damon stood at the window, hands clasped behind his back, waiting. 5 months of meticulous planning had led to this moment. Behind him, Nolan checked his watch. She's 2 minutes late. She'll come, Damon said with certainty. After what Riley told her, she has no choice. The suite's doorbell chimed precisely as he finished speaking. Nolan moved to answer it, his posture alert. Vanessa Kincaid stood in the hallway, her face pale with fury and fear. Gone was the confident doctor who had dismissed Damon so casually at her graduation party. In her place stood a woman whose carefully constructed world was collapsing around her. Where is he? She demanded, pushing past Nolan. Damon turned from the window, facing her directly for the first time since that devastating night in Los Angeles. Hello, Vanessa. She faltered momentarily, seeing him without the Devin Morrison disguise. You manipulative bastard, she finally managed. 6 months of lies? Pretending to be someone else? Infiltrating my life. Fascinating accusation coming from you, Damon replied coldly. You spent 6 years pretending to love me while systematically extracting resources for your education. That was different. Yes, it was, Damon agreed. My deception lasted 6 months and cost you your reputation. Yours lasted 6 years and cost me my future. Vanessa paced the room, her composure cracking. What you've done is insane. Buying our building? Manipulating hospital politics? Having your people monitor our private lives. I prefer to think of it as proportional response, Damon countered. You and your mother planned my exploitation for years. Maximilian knowingly participated in the deception. Did you really think there would be no consequences? So, this is revenge, she demanded. This is justice, Damon corrected, delivered with the same calculating precision you used when planning my humiliation. Vanessa collapsed onto the sofa, her anger momentarily giving way to despair. You've destroyed everything. My residency, Maximilian's position, our relationship. I didn't destroy your relationship, Damon interrupted. I merely subjected it to pressure. What broke, it was the weak foundation you built on betrayal and convenience. He moved to the bar and poured 2 glasses of scotch, offering one to her. Vanessa ignored it. What happens now? She asked, her voice smaller. Are you going to continue ruining our lives? That depends entirely on you, Damon replied, sitting across from her. My active involvement ends tonight, provided you and Maximilian accept certain conditions. What conditions? She asked warily. First, you leave Philadelphia, separately. Your relationship is over as of tonight. Damon's tone was matter of fact. Second, you repay what you stole from our joint accounts, $147,893 to be precise. I've already prepared the paperwork. And if I refuse? Then Phase 4 begins tomorrow, Damon said simply. What you've experienced so far has been carefully calibrated to allow recovery. Phase 4 would ensure neither you nor Maximilian works in medicine again. Vanessa stared at him. You wouldn't. I've spent 6 months and nearly $2 million orchestrating this response, Damon reminded her. Do you really want to test my resolve? The room fell silent as Vanessa processed her options. Finally, she asked, how did it come to this? We could have just broken up normally. That opportunity existed for 6 years, Damon replied. Instead, you chose to publicly humiliate me at an event I paid for, after taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from me. Your mother laughed in my face. You pretended not to know me in front of everyone we knew. For the first time, genuine remorse flickered across Vanessa's features. The public rejection was Mother's idea. She said a clean break would be more efficient. Efficient, Damon repeated, the word like ice. An interesting choice when describing the deliberate destruction of someone who loved you. Vanessa looked away. I never meant for her to go that far. But you didn't stop it, Damon observed. You participated fully, just as Maximilian did, just as your mother did. Each of you made choices, and now each of you is facing the consequences of those choices. He removed a folder from the desk and placed it before her. The repayment agreement, a non-disclosure agreement regarding everything that's happened, and my commitment to end all active measures against you, provided you comply. Vanessa opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. You've thought of everything. I learned from the best, Damon replied without humor. You taught me how calculating a person can be when properly motivated. After a moment of hesitation, Vanessa signed the papers. What about Maximilian? And my mother? Maximilian received similar terms an hour ago. He's already signed. Damon collected the folder. As for Patricia, her consequences have been tailored differently. The financial schemes she's been running through her charitable foundation have been anonymously reported to the relevant authorities. Vanessa's head snapped up. What schemes? The tax evasion your mother has been engaging in for years, Damon explained. She's been using charitable donations to fund her lifestyle, something I discovered while researching your family. That's not my fault, Vanessa protested. No, Damon agreed. But her raised you to believe that using people was acceptable. Her moral framework shaped yours. Her consequences are her own, just as yours are yours. He stood, indicating their meeting was concluding. Nolan will escort you out. Your residency program will receive your resignation letter tomorrow, citing personal reasons. You'll have 30 days to vacate your apartment and leave Philadelphia. Vanessa rose shakily. And that's it? After all this, you just walk away? I already walked away once. The night you pretended not to know me, Damon reminded her. This time, I'm ensuring you understand exactly why I'm walking away and what it cost to betray someone who trusted you completely. As she reached the door, Vanessa turned back. Did you ever really love me? Or was I always just a project to you? I loved you entirely, Damon answered, his voice finally betraying emotion. That's why your betrayal warranted this response. If you'd meant nothing to me, none of this would have happened. After she left, Nolan returned to find Damon staring out at the city again. It's done, then? Nolan asked. Phase 3 is complete, Damon confirmed. They've both signed the agreements. Do you think they'll honor them? They have no choice, Damon replied. The evidence we've gathered would destroy them professionally if released. Self-preservation will ensure their compliance. Nolan studied his friend carefully. Did it help? Seeing her broken like that, Damon considered the question. It wasn't about breaking her. It was about ensuring she understood the weight of her actions. That betrayal has consequences. And now we return to California, Damon said. Our work here is finished. Chapter 9, The Reconstruction. 1 year later, the Malibu sunset painted the Pacific Ocean in shades of gold and crimson as Damon stood on the deck of his rebuilt home. The original structure had been sold months ago, too filled with memories of Vanessa. This new house, further up the coast, represented his fresh start. Inside, Riley and Phoenix were engaged in a spirited debate about cryptocurrency regulation while Nolan manned the grill. The quarterly reunion of Damon's project team had become a tradition, though their professional relationships had evolved into genuine friendship. Damon's phone buzzed with a text from his new assistant. Real estate closing in San Diego successful. Final profit, $4.2 million. He smiled slightly. The past year had been remarkably productive professionally. Freed from the emotional drain of his relationship with Vanessa and energized by the successful execution of his justice project, Damon had channeled his focus into expanding his business empire. His net worth had nearly doubled. Good news? Nolan asked, joining him at the railing with 2 beers. Very, Damon confirmed, accepting the bottle. The San Diego development closed above projections. Not surprising. You're more focused than I've ever seen you. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Nolan spoke again. I saw Vanessa's name in the news yesterday. Damon raised an eyebrow, but showed no other reaction. Oh, she secured a residency position at a small hospital in Oregon. Starting over, it seems. Good for her, Damon said neutrally. No lingering desire to interfere? Nolan probed carefully. None, Damon assured him. Our business is concluded. What she does now is her own affair. And Maximilian? Last I heard, he'd taken a research position at a pharmaceutical company. Significantly below his previous trajectory, but a career nonetheless. Nolan nodded. And Patricia, sentenced to 18 months for tax evasion, currently serving at a minimum security facility. Damon's expression remained impassive. Actions have consequences. Any regrets? Nolan asked quietly. Damon considered the question seriously. Not about the Justice Project. They earned every consequence they received. My only regret is the 6 years I spent with someone who saw me as a resource rather than a partner. Riley joined them on the deck. Food's almost ready. Also, that developer from Vancouver called again. He's eager to partner on the medical office complex. Tell him I'll review his proposal next week, Damon replied. As Riley stepped away to make the call, Nolan observed, medical real estate. Interesting choice. It's a growth market, Damon said simply. My personal history doesn't change that fact. Speaking of personal matters, Nolan ventured. Audrey Bryant called. The gallery opening is next Friday. Damon nodded. I'm aware. I've confirmed my attendance. She seems interesting. She is, Damon agreed. Brilliant, accomplished, and refreshingly direct. No hidden agendas. Will you tell her about Vanessa? About what happened? Eventually, Damon said. If things progress. Transparency matters in relationships built on mutual respect. The conversation paused as Phoenix called them in for dinner. Seated around the table with these 3 people who had helped him execute justice, Damon felt a sense of peace that had eluded him since the night of Vanessa's graduation party. After dinner, as the others engaged in a board game, Damon stepped away to his office. On his desk sat a small wooden box. Inside was the engagement ring he'd once purchased for Vanessa, a 3-carat diamond in a platinum setting that had cost him $87,000. He'd kept it throughout the entire Justice Project, a tangible reminder of what had been taken from him. Now, its purpose fulfilled, he closed the box and placed it in a drawer. Tomorrow, he would have it appraised and sold, the proceeds donated to foster care programs in Los Angeles. The past was finally settled. Justice had been